7:25 p.m. The meeting is called to order. Mr. Clerk,
Mayor Joseph,
present.
Councilman Galvin,
Here.
Vice Mayor Keys,
Here.
Councilman Bieneme,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Sterritt,
What?
Councilman Desime. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you.
Somebody's getting a pay
Let's
cut.
proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance with Officer Robert Collin from North Miami PD. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll proceed with the invocation with Pastor Enoch Million.
Let us stand, please. The God of Israel, the God of Jacob, we give thanks tonight for being here tonight. For the first time this day, on Tuesday, for the year 2016. We have no word to say thank you are, God, how great you are. You give us so much. You do so much for us. And tonight we come to you to get together and get that meeting for the city of North Miami. Lord, we ask you to bless each and every one of us. Bless our mayor, bless our council members, and bless our residents of the city of North Miami. As we come together tonight, let us understand that you not let us down. You are with us, whatever way. Guide us, give us love and unity, so that this city can be a better city during the year 2016. We ask you in the name of God, amen.
Mr. Manager, do we have any additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda?
None to the agenda tonight, sir.
Do you want to continue as is?
Yes, sir.
We have a few special presentations tonight, so I'm going to ask the city council members to please come down with me and the clerk, and the elected clerk, right?
After what he did, you should have called him.
The first certificate is being given to, no, actually, I'm not the one doing it. I'm going to call the person who's going to present it, right? It's for the employee of the quarter, fall 2015. The recipient is Nakia Johnson Preston. At this point, I'm going to call the Assistant Public Works Director, Mr. Greg Neto.
Yes.
Oh, you're here? I should be turning this way.
Okay. The employee of the quarter award is decided upon all of the employees. It reflects the enduring effort and consistent performance of individuals, delivering exceptional results for themselves, their colleagues, and the city of North Miami. Having said that, the city of North Miami will recognize Nakia Johnson Preston, Administrative Assistant in the Public Works Department, as employee of the quarter for fall 2015. Nakia, also known as Nikki, was nominated by her colleagues due to her diligence, professionalism, and dedication. She has proven to be a very reliable asset to our department, and she goes above and beyond the call of duty to help ensure that the Public Works Department is current with projects, grant funding, and deadlines. She's able to multitask along with attention to details, and her accuracy is very commendable. I, for one, have the honor and privilege to presenting to you, Nikki, a plaque and a gift certificate.
Uh, my staff reminded me last week that this month is actually mentoring, National Mentoring Month. Mentoring is a very important thing in our in this country here because that's how, well, that's how we professionals we pass along some of the wisdom that we have in our profession to the youth and the ones, and we get them engaged. And when I became aware that I had to actually give a certificate to someone, I couldn't think of anybody else but the person I'm going to call. Actually, I don't need to read anything about you because I think I know a few things about Dr. Holder. Dr. Holder is a colleague of mine. She is an internist, an internal medicine doctor like I am. And my hat is off to you, Dr. Holder, because every time I call her, she always responds with a text. I'm with some students. You know, she doesn't have time for telephone, and she always has at least 2 or 3 students, medical students with her, and she goes over and beyond. I mean, you epitomize the word mentor, actually, and it's people like you that make up for people like me. So at this time, I'm going to ask you to please come forward and receive the certificate of commendation. Huh? You want to come with? Yes. Come with your students. And she is, actually, you're going to speak a little bit, because I know you're the director of the medical school program for the students and so forth. I'm not sure what your title is, so you can tell the public. Yes. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to be here. And I'm with the Herbert Wertheim College of Medicine. I'm also the local president of, well, used to be of James Wilson Bridges Medical Society, which is the National Medical Association arm, which are black physicians in America. And we are very, very much for mentoring because we want to bring up the next generation. Being an internist, I'm always giving patients diagnosis, and they all want to know, what's going to happen? What's the future? And I'm like, you know, we're not really gods, and we just hope for the best. But there's one thing about mentoring and about we as a society, we'll know what our future is because we look at the young people here. So we don't have to guess. If we work together, we can guarantee a future. So no, we don't have to worry about diagnoses and that future, but if we work together, we can have a future doctor here. These will be 2 future doctors, and they'll be like Dr. Joseph and myself, and they'll be here to take care of you and the community. So I thank you again. And with FIU, we're very involved in our community. We do a neighborhood health program where we adopt families, and we stay with that family for the entire 4 years of the medical student's career. And we'll bring in a nursing student, a social work student. We bring in education and pipeline. We bring in Saturday science, which we will also bring to City of Miami on Saturdays. North Miami, sorry. City of North Miami will get a Saturday science program like Little Haiti has one, and Opalaka and Miami Gardens. Because, again, we can see the future, and it's here with our children. So thank you.
Thank you. And the very first science program we're going to have, I think we're going to be dissecting hearts. So we going to get about maybe 20, 30, middle school and high school kids to come in and dissect some hearts. And subsequent sessions will be decided by Dr. Holder. So City of North Miami is on the move, so we're into science. Pig hearts. Human hearts is when they become doctors. Yeah. So for that, thank you very much for Dr. Holder. That's it? One more? One. The executive team? Oh, I thought that was from upstairs. You already got the check? That's the check for $1.5 billion? We have a presentation by the executive team of TD Bank Charitable Foundation. So pretty much this evening we are also being recognized by TD Bank Charitable Foundation, as they will be presenting us with the check. Well, they already did. We always see it's 1.6 billion with about 100 Powerball tickets. So am I supposed to call Mr. Sejour to come now and do this? I played for $5 last week and I didn't win. I plan to play for $4 this time. You never know, right?
Good evening. Wow, good evening. Wonderful. I'm Tanya Wilson-Sejour, the Community Planning and Development Department. I was asked to give an overview before the team came up from TD Bank. We just wanted to mention that we applied for this grant last summer. One of the things that we wanted to do was to encourage elderly housing, the provision of affordable housing for the elderly. It's often said in urban planning, one of the indicators of quality of life is to look at a city and to determine how it treats its children and how it values the elderly. So certainly for us, it was a priority to search and to seek out grants that were out there for elderly housing. And lo and behold, we found out at TD Bank, actually through the Charitable Foundation arm of TD Bank, they offered a housing grant, and we were able to put together a proposal for housing rehab for green housing, green elderly housing, and our proposal was accepted. And we were offered an award, $100,000. For the City of North Miami. We're so elated to have the corporate executive team here from TD Bank. So I'm going to bring up Tom Reel, and he's going to introduce the rest of his team that's here from TD Bank to talk about the Charitable Foundation arm and also the grant award that we received. Thank you.
So as Tanya said, my name is Tom Terrell. I'm the market president for South Florida for TD Bank. And so, as Tanya said, we had a very long competition, a very competitive competition, a nationwide competition, actually. 200 applicants applied last summer. We had 25 winners from Maine to Florida, $2.5 million in grants across our footprint from Maine to Florida, $100,000 each. We evaluated these proposals on the merits of the proposal the viability and sustainability of the organization, the governance and the strength and governance of the organization, and the history and involvement with affordable housing. So this year, as Tanya mentioned, our theme this year was affordable housing for seniors. And we found the project in North Miami was really a home run for us. It was an old abandoned house that was on, I guess it was on, 128th Street. And the North Miami team, the community development team, we're going to tear down the structure. We're going to give you $100,000. It's just a start to build a triplex for affordable housing here in North Miami. So we're really excited about it. I have Del Joseph, one of our senior RMs, and Anna Castilla, who is our community development manager for South Florida here as well. Really excited about presenting this to Mayor, you, and the council. Congratulations. Your team did a great job, and this is a great award for you. No, come in.
Miss Williams, you here? How you doing? I didn't realize that was you there. A couple of months ago, I was in a meeting, the MPO meeting downtown, and this gentleman made such a stellar presentation about the upcoming the Tri-Rail, the program. And as we know, North Miami is going to be the beneficiary of one of the stops. And I did approach him, Mr. Cross, to please, if he would consider coming here and make a presentation to us. And I think this presentation will shed a lot of light. And there have been a lot of questions about whether or not we were even going to get a stop. Mr. Scott Galvin, yes, we are.
You're gonna get a what? I'm sorry. My mom texted me. I was too preoccupied.
So without any further ado, Mr. Cross, thank you very much for responding to my request. And I think after tonight, we'll get a good grasp of what's to come. Good. And how we can get ready for what's going to be the greatest thing that ever happened to our city.
Okay, well, very good. I don't know if it's as good as winning Powerball, but we'll try to get as close as possible. So, Mr. Mayor, council members, on behalf of our board, the SFRTA, and our chair, Commissioner Barrero, and our executive director, Jack Stevens, it's a pleasure to be here this evening. I'm going to give you a brief overview of some of the projects that are going on here in the area that will come through your community and are really important transportation projects for the future. See if I can get this to work here. Okay, great. So the first slide here is just to kind of orient us in the overall region. The blue line is the current Tri-Rail line that goes north to south. It's close to 80-mile service. Runs between Miami-Dade, the new MIC facility at the Miami International Airport, and it runs all the way up to Mangonia Park in Palm Beach County. You can see it runs through the region's core, millions of people, millions of jobs, and it's a really important corridor. But an even better corridor is just to the east, and that's the red line. And that's what you probably have heard referred to as the Florida East Coast Railroad. And that is a privately owned corridor, privately owned freight railroad. And we would very much like to bring public transportation onto that corridor in the future. So again, here are the couple of the two corridors that we're talking about. One is the South Florida Rail Corridor, again in green, and that was purchased by the state of Florida about 26 years ago when Tri-Rail was begun. The red line is still in private hands, private freight railroad. There is the right-of-way necessary to add the additional infrastructure in order to support future commuter rail in that corridor. So I want to talk a little bit here about what's going on in that corridor that's not being driven by the public sector, but is being driven by the private sector to help just provide the distinction because between the two projects. Sometimes folks get a little bit confused over who's doing what out there with these two projects. The first project, and this will be to your right, and the line there in orange, is a interregional service that is being proposed, built, constructed, funded by the private sector, all aboard Florida. I believe they're now calling it their Brightline service, and that will have only 4 stations. We'll have a downtown Miami, a station in downtown Fort Lauderdale, one in downtown West Palm Beach, and then continue up to Orlando on the south side of the international airport there in Orlando. So that will be a higher speed type service. We'll have very limited stops and we'll move people long distances. Private sector. What I'm here today to talk, tonight to talk to you a little bit about is the Tri-Rail, the commuter rail, the local service that will provide the intermediate stops at the cities like your own where people live and work and reside and will allow them on a daily basis to commute to work and school and access their homes. The density is very much different. We're looking at a station more or less about 1 every 4 miles or so. It's a, again, 80-plus mile corridor up to Jupiter in northern Palm Beach. But what's really exciting is what we can do down here in Miami-Dade. You can see down at the south end there's a whole series of stations between downtown Miami and Aventura that are all solely located within Miami-Dade County. While we would certainly like to have the overall service along the whole corridor, it's very likely that the way this thing will get built and will be implemented will be one section at a time. And we believe that Miami-Dade is the right place to start with that service. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that we are doing in Miami-Dade here just briefly and how it ties in. So let me talk about some of the local benefits. We think many of the benefits are pretty self-evident, but certainly if you've been out in 95 or just out on your local road here recently, it feels like the economy's recovered and traffic right along with it. It's more difficult to move around than ever. So we're looking to provide an alternative to the automobile choice. And this would provide a single-seat ride into downtown Miami with a trip time of about 19 minutes. And it can provide a spine, transportation spine, within the eastern communities here. Of course, will not replace bus service. They'll connect to it. Shuttle bus service, et cetera, is all part of building a transportation and transit system. There has been a lot of work done on the station planning over the years. This is not a new project. This has been in the planning phase for about 10 years or so now. So a lot of work has been done, and that's up on our website and available there. But just to point out a couple of the highlights here locally, you know, you do have favorable land use and zoning in place here. This is a city that has a lot of opportunity. You have good density. You have the opportunity to redevelop and to put more density around the stations. And that's what we're really hoping to see with these stations. With this addition of this new service would be economic development, redevelopment, and intensity around activity around the stations. So some of the strengths and opportunities, well, your downtown is close by, certainly within walking distance. You have your Johnson & Wales University here. There's quite a few parcels in the area that are have the potential for redevelopment. And you have a very effective shuttle bus operation, as well as Miami-Dade Transit buses here that can help, again, connect and move people to the spine service that would be north-south. So let me talk about a little bit, really what we view as the first step in getting the service here to your city, which is something that we've called the Tri-Rail Downtown Miami Link. And this is a very exciting opportunity. It's a joint effort between a whole series of funding partners to bring Tri-Rail into downtown Miami and to co-locate in the new downtown Miami station. So what's really the genesis of this opportunity, and what's changed that all of a sudden has allowed this? Well, there was a submittal to the US DOT for a Tiger grant that was awarded, and you can see the two red circles there on the map. These are two kind of historical connections between these what were once competing railroads that have will put back in place the track that is necessary to connect these two corridors again. It was a joint funding between federal government, state government, our regional agency, the Florida East Coast Railroad, as well as CSX Freight Railroad. And what that has allowed us to do is to look at this opportunity of splitting some of the existing Tri-Rail service at about the Metro Rail station. It's called the Little River Connection, and cut across east-west and then down into the downtown Miami station. What's really important about this is good service, and we're really excited about being able to provide this. But what's really important about this is we get in that downtown station, and that's what opens up the opportunity to go up this gold corridor and come up and serve your city along with Aventura to the north, Midtown, other cities to the south of here. So getting into that downtown Miami is really a critical step for us. This is just a picture of what the station looks like. It's elevated in downtown in order to allow pedestrian auto movements to move unimpinged by the trains. You can see Tri-Rail is up to the left. There'll be two tracks, and the all-aboard service will be to the right. This is more or less what the development looks like. That will be in the ground around that station. It's over $1 billion of development that's ultimately planned for that location. And you can see here all of the different funding partners. So this was quite a heavy lift. We're looking at about $70 million of capital dollars to bring this thing to reality. The split is about $50 million is going to go into the actual station to develop that, and the other 20 are needed for infrastructure, additional tracks, signal, that type of thing. And you can see all the funding partners that we have. They understood the value, they understood the opportunity, and they really have seized the moment here. And all the local funding at this point is basically in hand. We are still waiting for our friends at Florida DOT to program the last $20 million, and we're very hopeful that that will occur here shortly. This is the route. Again, it's just perhaps a little bit clearer view of how that would go down into downtown Miami. And again, this is the beginning of the future that will come to this city. So that downtown station, you can see that red line to the east. Well, there's your station up at the top right corner. And that's, again, our best estimate is that's a 19-minute ride from North Miami to downtown Miami. And of course, there'd be another two stations to the north of you, including Aventura. We think that there is an opportunity here with Miami-Dade County. They are very interested in moving some projects within the county here in the next couple of years, and I know they are going through a process right now of trying to prioritize what will be some of the next projects that will move forward and be funded. We think that this project has some excellent technical merits, redevelopment opportunities. We think it's going to rate fairly high. only time will tell. And that'll be the capital side. I will tell you that there is going to be an operational cost to doing this. And so I do want to share with you here tonight that there may be an ask of the city to participate in the operating cost. Our agency is budget constrained. We stretched a little bit to get that downtown Miami service in place, and one of the ways we did that is we just basically splitting our trains. Every other train, one will go to downtown, one will go to the Miami airport. But to provide this north-south service up to Aventura, we will have to identify a source of new revenue for the operations. The capital costs, we have all the necessary equipment, spare locomotives, spare rail cars in order to operate it. We have funding partners that we believe will step forward, including potentially federal government, state, and we know the county. So the capital side, we think we're in good shape on. So that's where that project stands. So the next steps, again, the downtown Miami link, the current schedule, and this is being led by the private sector side and the development of the downtown station. They are looking for the end of 2017 to have that building done and to have service start. So we plan to be in there whenever that building is available to us. We want to be there. So hopefully by the end of 17, we are in fact there. The Tri-Rail Coastal Link is the full 80 miles that we spoke about. Frankly, that one's been in planning for a long time. I don't see that thing moving forward as a whole project, just because the numbers get pretty big that way. I think the way we're going to move this is one piece at a time. And I am optimistic that the next piece after getting to downtown Miami is going to come up this corridor and serve your city and other cities and get to Aventura. So I think that's pretty much the end of my presentation, and I would be glad, of course, to try to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Mr. Cross, where in North Miami would the station be located?
Well, generally right here at 125th is the targeted location. We have worked with city staff. I will tell you that until we get into the actual environmental, we will not pin down the final location. So what we have right now is one of those big planning circles kind of around a general area. We know in talking to some of your staff, there's some pros to going to the north side, there's some pros to going to the south side. So that's still an open conversation, and we would love to have maybe a private developer who owns some land, step forward and maybe do a proposal, joint public-private, get a station built for you.
When might you have those types of conversations with area property owners?
Well, they're ongoing, and so as developers express interest to us, we, of course, meet with them. So it's been ongoing coordination. The challenge is that until we have an overall funding package of not just the capital but the operating, and we really know we're about to move forward, those decisions can't really be finalized. But the conversation is ongoing, and we're always willing to speak to someone who might be a good funding partner for us.
Okay, and that was my next question then. The North Miami City Council, made up of different members, has already passed a resolution saying we weren't going to use city money. We're not going to use city money for this project.
Right.
Are you coming back to us at some point to ask for money? If so, how much money do you want the city of North Miami to put in? And is our financial participation the tit for tat for a station to be located within the city of North Miami?
Well, I'll answer the last question first. And it's almost certainly going to be a yes. So if you're not willing to participate financially, there will not be a station. When we take on a station, it is a permanent commitment, and we will be here with private security. We will be here maintaining that station every single day. We will put the lights on, we will staff it with customer service, and we will run trains through here that provide a benefit to your city day in and day out. So a city that cannot see their way clear to participating in those costs of ongoing operating, there's nothing I'd like to, I would love to be able to say, stand up here and tell you that we have all the funding necessary to do that, but the reality is we're going to be able to bring the capital dollars, and we're gonna get all of that built, and we're gonna operate it for you every day. But we're gonna have to ask you to have some skin in the game.
How,
in order
how
to
much
have it.
skin? And skin on an annual basis or a one-time skin?
Well, you know, again, we'd be open to looking at different alternatives. So if there was a
How much skin? I'll just start there. How much skin?
Yeah.
How much skin?
Well, it'll be more than a Powerball ticket, but less than the winnings. I guess I could start there. And we don't really have a final number, but I will give you the broad outlines so you can kind of start to gauge. We believe that the operations for the entire Aventura piece will be in the ballpark of about $8 million a year. And if I go back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 stations, plus or minus, maybe
so
7. So you're looking at
$1 million
$1
a
million,
year.
let's say, in round numbers, is probably a ballpark.
Will you have any type, when you get to that point, I would like to see something that shows how North Miami is gaining more than $1 million. I mean, if we've got $1 million extra to spend, which we really don't, but if we were to put that forward and you're saying, well, this will be a benefit to our residents, you know, staff will need to be able to mark that, measure that independently to show that our folks are going to use it, because I don't know if it's going to be a park and ride station. I don't know if you're planning on putting restaurants in the area. You know, if it's just a simple stop. I've got a lot of questions, and I love the idea of high-speed rail. I love the concept, but I also know that this is a working-class community, and we don't have $1 million a year to throw towards much of anything, let alone a railway. So, you know, I think it would be very advantageous to know everything in real time, because if we don't have the money, then you've just made it clear we won't have the station.
I understand. And so we also know that there are some funds that could be potentially available that are city share of People's Transportation Plan funds, et cetera. There are joint development opportunities where developers may be able to step forward in return for increased densities, et cetera, that they make some of the commitments. The specifics of what your station would look like here is really largely going to be driven by the city and your developers in the area. So if what you're really looking for is a smaller community, more pedestrian, you don't want the big parking, we don't really envision very many of the stations on this corridor looking anything like the existing Tri-Rail suburban model. Again, that's out next to the interstate where basically you have to drive, or you take bus, or you have kiss and ride, people dropping you off. The difference along this corridor is that this is the old Henry Flagler line. All these cities kind of developed, you know, historically, strung like pearls along a necklace on here. And so we're looking at this as being much more about walk access, about pedestrian scale and redevelopment opportunities. So, I am fully aware of that the ask is not insignificant. And so again, we look forward to working with you and your staff to move this project forward.
Okay.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
that picture you keep showing, you call the Aventura line, goes through Opelika?
No, it does not.
That dot looks like it's saying Opelika, and it looks like it's going way west of our city.
I'm
No,
sorry, and I wish I
that's-
could point it better to you. The black and red line on the map, that's the existing Tri-Rail. The service on the dash blue line, that would be kind of top right corner of the map that's on the page there. That's where North Miami is located, and that's the station that we're talking
Okay,
about.
so we're talking the blue, not the red.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
I really thank you, Mr. Cross, for agreeing to come in. I know this is not in your working hours, but yet you did take the time, and very humbly you accepted to come here and make this wonderful presentation. And the reason I must remind the council members, and as well as everybody who's present in the audience, that the reason why I brought this up, and Mr. Cross can attest to that, the end thing in Miami-Dade County is transportation. transportation, transportation. That's why the chairman, when after he got elected, the first thing he did, he developed a subcommittee called Transit Solutions Committee, and where we are actually looking at transportation problems and see how we can come up with plausible solutions. The county actually has medium range and long range projects. They consist of multi-millions and billions of dollars. They're looking at traffic in from Broward, anywhere from West Palm, Broward to Miami-Dade County, and also exceeding from Miami-Dade County to Broward. So that's causing a lot of stress in the Miami-Dade County a transportation system, and they are looking at some other models from Denver, Colorado, and other places to see how, because not Miami, remember, we are not an island. We are part of the Miami-Dade County transportation system. So if we do not position ourselves right now to take opportunities of to plug ourselves into what's coming in, we're simply going to be left behind. And we do know that of course, with the implementation of a new station, that station is gonna be in North Miami. So it's a capital-driven project, and the surrounding areas. As a matter of fact, a couple of months ago, because of this project, the vice chairman Bovo, he came up with a resolution, and it was passed unanimously to come up with a study of the east-west corridor, a feasibility study to see how they can redevelop that area for the upcoming tri-rail system. So I think it behooves us, and Aventura is really excited about this program as well. So I'm simply throwing this in just to let my colleagues know that this is a project that is very promising, and this is an opportunity that I do not think we should let pass and not take, not to partake in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for inviting us this evening. And if I might just, to respond, Councilman Galvin, I do want to send you some information, a link, because we did do an economic analysis for all of the stations and what the potential would be, and I forgot to answer that question to you. So we will get in touch with your staff and make sure that you get that in your hands. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, for inviting us.
Yeah, also, manager informed me that every meeting we're going to have a different department present in our meetings. Tonight we are blessed with Public Works. The people of Parks and Rec are here, so if you could please stand up so you may be recognized tonight. Thank you. Now we have Mr. Attorney Goldstein, who's going to make a wonderful presentation about the benefits of Brownsfield's designation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Brief presentation. I've been advised and reminded on several occasions. So I will be as brief as I possibly can, but I want to preface my remarks by commenting on the last presentation, because there's a wonderful opportunity here using the Brownfields program to perhaps come up with some skin to put in that game that won't impact directly on the city's treasury. And it demonstrates as clearly as I could possibly hope the utility and power of the Brownfields program and what it can mean for the city when applied creatively. The gentleman who made the last presentation noted that the location of the transportation facility hasn't yet been decided, but will turn in large part on environmental issues, which is where you enter into the Brownfields analysis as to whether a site or a corridor or an assemblage of disconnected sites can or should be designated a brownfield. Once a brownfield is designated, however, a number of incentives become available. We've talked about those in the past. But specifically relevant to the transportation enhancement opportunity that the gentleman spoke of, To the extent that the city agrees to designate that particular location whenever it's selected a brownfield, then the following incentives would be made available. And these would be especially relevant and resonant if the city allows for a public-private partnership. So a public-private partnership that comprised in part of affordable or workforce housing, which I know is a priority for the city, would then create the opportunity to refund to the developer 100% of the sales tax paid on construction materials. And for a multifamily, affordable or multifamily workforce project that we would expect to see in connection with this type of development, my experience is that the refund would likely be between $1 and $1.5 million in cash. And so the quid pro quo for the city allowing the project to go forward with a brownfields designation could be that some or all of that refund, which is really found money that would otherwise go to the P3 development team, could be allocated as the city's financial contribution to the development. That's one potential incentive and a way to really leverage the brownfields program to enhance the project, the transportation project, the Tri-Rail project, and make it more likely that it will happen here in North Miami. Similarly, the brownfields program also provides for a state tax refund for job creation. And it's a significant tax refund, $2,500 cash from the state for every new job created. So to the extent that this theoretical P3 development, transportation-oriented development, has a commercial component or a retail component that creates a significant number of jobs. It could, for example, contain a big box retailer, maybe a grocer, that typically creates anywhere between 200 and 300 new full-time jobs that would be eligible for this refund. Well then, out of thin air, we would have another $1 million to $1.5 million cash that would be available as a result of the city's allowing the designation to occur. And as part of the negotiation with the Tri-Rail team and the private developer coming in, that money, that additional money on this, on these facts that I've proposed, could generate $2.5 million in cash, which again could be considered the city's contribution for allowing the project to go forward. So that's where I start the presentation. And this is really both review and preview. Review of what we've done with respect to Rucks Park, and preview with respect to other designation opportunities, brownfield designation opportunities that the city can pursue. Why would we do that? We would do that for a number of reasons, but mainly because the brownfields program allows the city and private sector, for-profit and not-for-profit partners to leverage limited resources by taking advantage of state funds and federal funds to accelerate cleanup of environmentally impacted sites, to create new job opportunities, and to further implement the city's broader economic development agenda. We've seen that time and time again, year in and year out in the state of Florida since 1997, when the Florida Brownfields Redevelopment Act was first promulgated. We have over 350 designations, brownfield designated areas in the state of Florida, covering over 250,000 acres. The specific incentives that are available to accelerate environmental restoration, free up financing, create jobs, and allow for a number of other social, environmental equity and justice benefits, and even more. We mentioned a couple of the incentives: a voluntary cleanup tax credit, which returns money to developers and to the city based on money spent on cleanup, a tax refund for job creation, a tax refund on construction materials that are spent on affordable or workforce housing projects, broad liability protection for local governments, developers, and lenders, which frees up financing, which is critical for environmentally impaired sites. So these are important tools, tried and true, proven tools that are in use throughout the state of Florida and here in South Florida in particular. Now, this body was visionary enough to implement a brownfield strategy for Rucks Park last year. What has happened in the interim? We went forward, once the designation was in place, we negotiated a brownfield cleanup agreement with Miami-Dade County operating as the state of Florida's agent. So Miami-Dade County and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection are working hand in glove to ensure whatever protection ultimately occurs, whatever cleanup ultimately occurs at Rucks Park is fully protective of human health and the environment. In doing so, the city now has complete liability protection against any third-party claims for property damage, to compel more cleanup than the city agrees to conduct and that the county approves the city to conduct. And there are some other aspects to that liability protection which are important to the city. We've also begun to recover monies that the city is spending on cleanup that would otherwise disappear into the ether. So we get 100% of the value of the cleanup, we being the city, and now we're recovering currently up to 75% of every single dollar that we're spending in tax credits. Florida corporate income tax credits, which the city will send and monetize at about 88 cents on the dollar. Now, they say from little things, big things come, and that's going to happen here at Rucks Park, Mayor and council members. Why do I say that? Last year, we didn't spend that much money on cleanup because the process is just getting started. We intend to spend a significant amount of money this year and in the following year. And to give you an example of how significant this is going to be for the city as a result of your action to implement a brownfield designation strategy and brownfield cleanup strategy, my office, and I suppose for the record I should say this, my name is Michael Goldstein. I'm with the Goldstein Environmental Law Firm, and I'm here on behalf of the city. Our firm was also engaged on behalf of the city of Doral to implement this same type of strategy for a park that they are cleaning up and redeveloping. There, the redevelopment is for a sports and wellness complex, and last year they spent over $1 million on digging up contaminated soil to allow the cleanup to go forward. We are going to submit tomorrow a tax credit application to the state of Florida that will recover $750,000 in tax credits on the amount of money they spent last year, which will be monetized into $660,000 in cash. Now here, the city has a chance to go 25% better than that, because from what I understand, the city is seriously contemplating as part of the reuse for Rucks Park, affordable or workforce housing as one element. And as a result, there is an additional incentive that gets paid to the city for that type of end use. And so the yield, the tax credit yield, goes from 75% to 100%. So every single dollar, if affordable or workforce housing is a part of the reuse, it doesn't have to be all of the reuse. So a portion of the property could be kept as a park, or it could be repurposed as a community center or a health clinic. Whatever the case may be, we're going to get 100 cents on the dollar in tax credits, which will be monetized at 88 cents on the dollar. So if we spend $1 million, which is a possibility, on environmental related matters to promote redevelopment and reuse, you're going to have $1 million in value from that money spent on cleanup. Plus, we're going to bring back to you approximately $880,000 in cash, which we put back in the general treasury for this council to decide how to spend. That is a very brief, I hope it was brief, overview of the Brownfields program and why it's relevant to Rucks Park and to the city generally. And I went rogue a little bit and discussed how we could also apply it to the Tri-Rail project as a way to put some city skin into the game to make that project more of a reality without actually impacting directly on the city treasury. Finally, I've been asked to give a 30-second update as to what's happening with respect to the cleanup at Rucks Park. So here's what's happening with respect to the cleanup. The city has now engaged a very good, proven environmental consultant, replacing the previous environmental consultant, and our firm is working with this consultant, which was on the city's approved list of environmental contractors, and we are working hand in glove with Miami-Dade County DERM, the county's environmental agency, operating under the direction of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, to complete the contamination assessment. The next phase of that contamination assessment will be completed and submitted to the county on February 17th, 2015. We were actually a
16.
Thank you. February 17th, 2016. We are about 25 days ahead of schedule, and we may submit earlier. There will likely be one additional phase of assessment, which will then occur in the next 60 days after we turn in our report, after which time we will begin to put together a cleanup plan. And we will work with Director Wilson Sejour on the proposed reuse, taking direction from this council. And the cleanup plan will incorporate the proposed reuse and soon thereafter be implemented. So my belief, based on consultation with your staff, is that we should have a very good understanding of how much we're going to spend ultimately on this site as part of the proposed reuse in the next 6 months. Full stop.
Mr. Goldstein, thank you for the presentation, and I'm thinking that the residents of District 3 seem informed about the evolution of the situation, Works Park for the cleanup. And one good news is that 100% of the money spent on cleanup, the city gonna get that money back. Is it correct?
That is, well, we're, provided that we, as a part of the proposed reuse, there is either an element of affordable or workforce housing
Yeah,
or public health, we will get 100% of the money back in tax credits.
Yeah.
Florida corporate income tax credits that then have to be sold, which are now being sold on the secondary market and have been for some time at about 88 cents on the dollar. So we'll get back 88% of those costs unless we decide to pay our vendors who pay Florida corporate income tax by assigning them the tax credits, which some vendors are happy to take because of their relationship with the city and because they want to continue doing work for the city, at which point the city would realize 100 cents on the dollar and not 88 cents.
Thank you very much. And
Mr. Mayor, I have a question more for staff. Have we identified or in the process of identifying potential brownfield area within the city? I know it was mentioned within Mr. Goldstein's presentation. I'll call this, well, I know Mr. Goldstein has done all of our work in regards to brownfield designation. So he'll be able to answer the question.
If I may, through the mayor, to respond to the council member. We are working very closely with your community planning department
Okay.
on identifying additional sites that are suitable for brownfield designation in all of the city districts. And
Thank you.
we hope to bring that report back to you in the next 30 to 60 days.
thank you. And
Any other question? Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you can let some residents around in the district and who's concerned about the cleanup of Works Park, if they want to say anything, if they have any questions. Okay, that's fine.
You're
That's
welcome.
when-
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
The
council
question,
members.
that's
Thank
when
you.
you said by February 17, that's when you're going to have the final assessment.
That is
And-
when we are going to submit the next assessment report to the county. And as the way these things go, environmental regulators are never satisfied with a single bite at the apple. So we expect they will come back and ask us to do a little more,
Okay.
which we're prepared to do very quickly because we're fully ramped up and engaged in the project. And we will likely submit a supplemental and final assessment report within 60 days, along with a recommendation for cleanup based on the proposed reuse, which we understand will have to include or consist of direction from the mayor and council as to
But
what that reuse will
right now, the location is a mixed-use, high-density. That means most
Yes.
likely housing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct.
That's where we're going to go with it.
Understood.
Thank you very much.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Goldstein.
Thank you. Any city events announcement?
Sandra will give us a very brief.
I'll be brief, I'll be brief.
If it goes more than 1 minute, you have to stay till the end of the meeting at 1 a.m.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Cassandra Timothy, and I'm here to share with you all of our exciting events coming up in the city of North Miami. Save the date. The city of North Miami turns 90 years old in 2016, and we're celebrating all year long. The kickoff event will take place on Tuesday, February 2nd, prior to our special council meeting. Stay tuned, more events are underway. Join us for a candlelight vigil as we salute the work and vision of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. through spoken word, song, and dance performances by students from our local schools on Wednesday, January 13th at 6 p.m. in the Mocha Plaza. This event is presented by the North Miami University Relations Board. In addition, North Miami's administrative offices are closed on Monday, January 18th, in observance of Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. The Florida Department of Transportation is developing a roadway improvement project along Northwest 125th Street from Northwest 6th Court to Northeast Miami Court. FDOT will be holding a public meeting at the North Miami City Hall on Thursday, January 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. to review the project design and answer questions. Tickets are currently on sale for the second annual Mayor's White Now Gala, presented by the Police Athletic League of North Miami. Join us for an Egyptian-themed extravaganza Saturday, January 30th at 5:30 p.m. at the Miami Auto Museum. This event will include live band, fine cuisine, cocktails, and surprises throughout the night. For more information about all of our city events, visit www.northmiamifl.gov, like the City of North Miami on Facebook, follow us on Twitter @NoMeNews, and download our new mobile app, MyNoMe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe I saw a former councilman Despinos earlier. I don't know if he's still here. Just wanted to recognize him if he's still here. If not, the next item on the agenda is to approve the consent agenda. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Kevin Burns.
Motion was made by Councilman Galvin to approve the consent agenda. It was seconded by Mayor Joseph. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Consent agenda has been approved with a 5-0 vote.
Okay, I've been told also that former Mayor Kevin Burns is in the audience, as well as former Mayor Wolin. Welcome among us.
Tab F, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving the award of fiscal year 2015 through 2016 community redevelopment block grant funds to not-for-profit community-based organizations, providing for an effective date and for all of the purposes.
We have staff presentation.
Yes, at this time, we're going to call Tanya Sedora Wilson up, the planning director.
As a point of order, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I believe that Vice Mayor, there may exist a potential, perhaps, conflict of interest, not pursuant to Florida law, but perhaps through federal law. We have requested a determination from HUD, but as of this evening, we have yet to receive. So I would urge that you perhaps would consider recusing yourself as a board member of one of the CBOs.
So am I allowed to discuss it, or just I have to stay out of
I
this
would
altogether?
stay out of it because I do not know HUD's determination in full.
Shall I step down from the dais?
That would be
Also?
my recommendation,
Okay, then
just
I
to
will
err on the side of
recuse myself.
caution.
For those who are wondering, I serve as a director of the North Miami Foundation for Senior Citizens. Even though we have had council people for the past 10, 15 years sitting up here making decisions, it's come to our attorney's attention, so I will recuse myself.
Thank you, ma'am.
Don't eat all of the cookies in the back.
Even if you not getting paid, say volunteer job.
Mr. Mayor, you may proceed.
No, go
Thank
ahead.
you.
I'm being told to be brief by my manager. So just for the record, again, Tanya Wilson Sejour with the Community Planning and Development Department. The request before you is for the council to consider the resolution for the allocation of community-based organization funds through the HUD CDBG funding program. This is typically the cycle that comes before the council once a year, so I know the mayor and council are very familiar with the process. But for the benefit of the members of the public, I'll just explain very briefly what it is that's being proposed before you. Each year, there's an allocation given by HUD to support community-based organizations. For this year, the city has been given $88,500 to be dispersed amongst its community-based organizations. The criteria for allocation is very specific. Three of the main priorities is that for projects that are proposed and submitted for consideration, they must show that they meet a broad national objective. First, that they principally benefit low and moderate income persons. that they prevent or eliminate slum or blight, and they address an urgent need or problem in the community. This year, we've received 12 proposals from various community-based organizations. I know they're all here in representation. If they could raise their hands just to show that they are here in numbers. Their proposals were presented at length before the Planning Commission. We have a committee that was assembled, and the evaluation committee was comprised of staff from the purchasing department, Parks and Recreation, the city manager's office, Public Works, as well as community planning and development. What you'll find in your packet is an actual evaluation sheet based on the merit of each proposal that was submitted. That evaluation sheet was reviewed by our Planning Commission, your advisory board, and based on the recommendations of the evaluation committee, the Planning Commission recommended unanimously that it be accepted as proposed. As I mentioned before, the CBOs are here if in the event the council has questions for any specific CBO or any proposal that's been put forward to the city. Otherwise, staff is recommending that the resolution and the submitted proposals be approved as submitted.
What's the application period again?
You mean in terms of the procurement period?
Yes.
That's usually in September, like from September 1st to the 30th.
But how do we
early in the
advertise?
fall.
How do we
It's in
advertise?
the Miami Herald. Federal law requires that you publish it in a paper of general circulation. So it's typically the Miami Herald, and they're given a period of time to submit proposals, and then that window of opportunity is closed.
Yeah, but do you advertise it how many times? Just once?
It's once in the Miami Herald. It's also on the website. We put it on Channel 77. We have flyers in our office itself.
And it's not a whole bunch of money.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I'm asking the question is because, unfortunately, I do have a few people come to me and ask about funding, and when I refer them to this program, and unfortunately, they do not even know what the application period is every year. I mean, we may have to do a better job, in informing the public of what that period is, and so that they do not miss the opportunity. So, the other question that I always have is that we do have a list of CBOs being presented to us, chosen by a team or by a committee, but it's only presented to us for a few minutes, and we have to vote and adapt it without full knowledge of, what went on. And of course, we're going to vote on it because that is the culture. That's what it's been. But I hope that in the future we modify this process a little bit so that we can have, I don't know what's acceptable by HUD, guidelines. But in my opinion, when we sit here and vote on an item, it must be something that we do have at least a little bit of knowledge on from the inception of the process, through the end.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, historically, it used to be, this is about the first year in 17, maybe the second, but it used to be that each group came and made a presentation to the council. They were allotted 4 or 5 minutes to make their presentation. And then we, with the recommendations from the Planning Commission, we actually made that decision. It was a long, drawn-out process, and yes, we'd argue who's getting 8,000 versus who's getting 10,000 versus that kind of thing, but this is the first time I've seen it so tightly streamlined that the organizations aren't scheduled to make presentations. So.
And all of the organizations are here, and we can go through it. We set the timer for a minute is to have each organization come up.
No, we can't do it like this as we go along. It's a process that has to be determined in advance. We cannot just decide tonight for them to make an actual presentation.
We have informed everyone that they were
pre-informed.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor. Oh, sorry.
Did you?
Well, no, I was gonna say, Mr. Mayor, every year is that.
Is that?
Oh.
Do you want to give?
Well, just to piggyback on what the mayor said and Mr. Galvin, I had some questions as far as how was the recommendation, but I think you stated how the tally sheet came about. I wanted to know what was the ranking. I know there are some ranking here, and if the organization been informed, because each one asks for an amount. Now, would the amount that we're giving them, would that be able for them to have that conversation had with with the prospective applicants? We giving you less, would you be able to carry the program with the amount that we are giving you? Because I don't think the planning commission or whomever, you know, is doing this, but because some of these organizations are asking for a lot, you know, for at least $10,000, for example, and looking at when they're giving $4,000 less. So I think it's something, as the policymaker, if we're gonna be voting on it, these are decisions that we need to find out, talking to these organizations to find out some of these programs. I see a program here, clearly I asked some information regarding this program because I know some of the participants are not really residents of North Miami. I never gotten it, but yet staff in the group, the committee who met, you know, almost gave them almost everything they wanted. So, you know, those are my little questions. So I would piggyback on the mayor and Councilman Galvin to make it more transparent. Let the organization come before us and state what they have to state, although you guys could have the recommendation, but at least give us more involvement in the process, instead of just saying, well, we recommending you guys voting on this. Because I don't know if I vote for this, if some of them will be able to proceed. Go ahead.
Councilman Galvin?
Sure, I was gonna suggest continuing this. I don't wanna open this can of worms tonight. We've got a couple of really meaty, weighty issues in front of us yet. If it doesn't hurt our federal stance, I would say continue it for 2 weeks and ask that each organization come back and be prepared